We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We have an enemy who tries to convince us of things that are untrue. Our enemy makes statements that are untrue about ourselves, untrue about our world, and untrue about our God. In this series, we will address these lies and focus on how to train our thinking to know the truth.
What is up, church family? My name is Emma, and we are in week 2 of our brand new series called Kingdom Mindsets. So this morning, Pastor Clint talked about what it means to be joyful versus woeful and how we can choose to live a life of joy no matter what we're going through. So the key verse for this weekend was Romans 12:12, and it says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. So we're going to talk about what it means to be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. So number 1, the lie is that our circumstances will determine our level of joy. And the truth, God's truth, is that we can find joy regardless of our circumstances. So one thing that Pastor Clint talked about this morning was happiness. So there's a difference between happiness and joy. So happiness is determined by our circumstances. So if things are going well, then that means that we can be happy. But if things are going bad, then that means we shouldn't be happy, or we shouldn't have joy, as the enemy would say. But when we choose to have joy, that comes from the inside out, and that actually affects our circumstances, not the other way around. So a lot of times our circumstances can affect us, but they don't have to control us. So as believers, we have the choice whether we're going to let our circumstances control us, or if we're just going to let them kind of help shape us and learn from them. So there's 3 action steps that we can take when we're choosing joy in our everyday life. So the first one is to imagine a positive future. So this comes from be joyful in hope. And so as believers, the Lord promises that we have a hopeful future, that our future is good, and that as long as we're following Him, that things will be good. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be easy, but when we choose joy and when we choose to look at the positive things in the future that God has promised us, that can bring us joy in our moment now. So I don't know what that piece of joy is for you. I don't know what you need to look forward to, what promise you need to hold on to from the Lord, but cling to that promise that in Him, our future is always good. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future. And so when we choose to have joy, when we choose to look at the promises of God, we can find joy in our current circumstance. Whether those are good or bad right now, we can choose to have that joy. Number 2 is to wait out the storm. And so this comes from be patient in affliction. And so we see the best example of this in the New Testament when Jesus went to the cross. You see, He knew that going to the cross was going to be hard. It was going to be, just a hard circumstance. But He saw the joy that was set before Him. And in Hebrews 12, it says, for the joy set before Him, He endured the cross. So He knew what was coming. He thought of you and He thought of me when He went to the cross. And that was the joy that He held on to. And He knew that the suffering that He was going to endure on the cross was only going to be for a moment, that season of the storm was only going to be for a moment, and that there was something better on the other side of it. So I don't know what situation you're in. I don't know what storm you're in right now, but I want to tell you that the Lord has something on the other side of it that's so good. And He's just encouraging you to have endurance and to just endure this season that you're in and look for Him throughout this season. So that was wait out the storm. So we have imagine a positive future and wait out the storm. And number 3, the most important, is to talk to God continually. And so it doesn't say talk to Him when we feel like it, but talk to Him continually. And so praying, when we choose to pray to God, that's our way of communicating with Him throughout our day. You can be driving down the road. You could be maybe having a rough day. And even just talking to the Lord, I believe, will bring so much joy into your life and into your circumstance. And we also talked about the importance of praying together. So Pastor Clint said, praying together is greater than the sum of its parts. So when we're going through a season, it's so important to ask people to pray with us, not necessarily to pray for us, but to pray with us in hope and knowing that the Lord is going to come through on whatever situation it is. And so there's also a powerful promise that's related to prayer. So when we choose to pray, when we choose to talk with God, I believe that he's going to reveal so many things, and he's going to bring that endurance that you need throughout this season. And so this week was all about what it looks like to choose joy. So I don't know what situation you're in right now. I don't know what circumstance it is, but I just want to encourage you that the Lord is for you and that he's fighting for you and he has good plans for you. So don't lose hope. Don't lose heart. And whatever season you're in, just choose joy, because I promise you, the Lord will show you so many more things than you could have ever imagined.